Alright, hey everyone, Simon here, and welcome back to our ARCHMINE100 series, where we are looking at architectural concepts through Minecraft. So we are still working on exercise 4, which is to color these dirt houses. We've done the interior. One house is slightly insane, the other house is slightly more sensible. I'm thinking what to do about the exterior. I think maybe we should do the same thing for the exterior, which is to say, we'll try out some wacky ideas on one side, on this one, and then we'll try to do a serious building on the other one. That might be a useful thing to do. How should we do this? I was thinking maybe I'll turn this into a giant mushroom house. I don't know if that's a good idea. It's probably not a good idea, but I want to try and turn this into a giant mushroom house. See how that works. That's most probably a terrible idea, but I'm gonna do it anyway for the sake of experiments and science. So here we go. So we're gonna start with a white. So it's gonna be like a mushroom house from Super Mario or something. So the inside of the roof is gonna be white, or the underside of the roof is gonna be white. The top's gonna be red with white spots. Should we try that and see how that turned out? It's gonna be weird, of course, but that's the whole point. That's the joke. Okay, so white down here. I guess this has to be white here as well. And as we, do the wacky colors on this building, what we're doing is basically we're getting to know the building a bit better, because we see all the shapes, and then we kind of figure out what we really want to do in the serious building, which is going to be the other one, right? And also see what colors work well together and see what colors don't work well together. I feel like making this into a giant mushroom will actually work really well as a giant mushroom. Not as a house, but as a giant mushroom. Alright, so we're gonna have white underneath here. Just change that. Look at the inside, look at this. Look at this checkerboard patterns. It's crazy. What is going on inside this house? Did I change the... No, I didn't. Alright, let's come over here and change those to white as well. There we go. And then change this. We have to do the balcony as well, don't we? Let me just go around, make sure we get everything right. Although I don't know how that makes any sense because we're turning the house into a giant mushroom, but let's make sure we do the giant mushroom correctly. Oh, I can't get inside here because there's a fence. Alright, let me just slip inside and turn this white as well. See how this goes. Alright. So even the... oh crap. Even the roof is 2 blocks thick, so even in the roof you can have a different color on top than on the bottom. As I said earlier, everything in these dirt houses are 2 blocks thick, so you can have different colors on each side, and that applies even to the roof. So if you want the underside of the roof to be one color and the top a different color, you can do that. Except when you accidentally break a block. Did I do that? I thought we did. Alright. So white underneath here, and let's go back out. and then red on top, right? For the mushroom. It's not all mushrooms are red with white dots. Only one particular poisonous species. If you see these things in the forest, don't eat them. They are quite poisonous and really, really not good for your health. Which is interesting because in Minecraft you can turn them into mushroom soup and you just drink it. So that's a don't copy Minecraft. Do not eat mushrooms that are red with white dots on them. Ever. Just don't do it. They're poisonous and they're bad for you. But yeah, you do it in Minecraft. Turn it into mushroom stew. I mean, a red roof is not. I mean, we're making a mushroom, which is kind of silly. But a red roof is actually not as uncommon as you might imagine. Like, tiles and bricks are reddish brown. What other red roofs are there? I guess fire stations are quite red. Sometimes. Now, how much of a mushroom do we want to make this? Or do we just want to make it kind of like a mushroom and not actually a mushroom? Because as we kind of make this a red roof, maybe we just keep it red and not have like spots on it. Because it is a bit silly to have a giant mushroom house. Oops. And you can see the bits of the interior. But of course, once you have all the blocks in, you can cover it up so it doesn't actually show through. Yeah. I'm not gonna put polka dots, or well, maybe polka dots. I'm not gonna do the checkerboard thing on the exterior. That's a bit silly. Maybe I can have like half and half, like because it's 2 apartments. I'm gonna have like half one color and half the other color on the roof and on the outside walls. Bright red roof. It doesn't look bad. I mean, it's quite bright red, but it's not really bad. It's actually not bad. It's kind of good. And if we do put in white spots on the roof, where do we put them? This is going to take a while. Basically, I have to shovel out all the dirt on top and then place it all down again. Yeah, let me just do this. It's not going to be too interesting to watch, I'm afraid. In terms of like kind of color and color blindness, I don't know if you guys know this, but men are more likely to be colorblind than women. That's just a genetic thing. And it's also true that people who are colorblind are actually have a better ability to see fast and small differences in movement, if that makes sense. So you know, because the rods if you remember the rods and cones in the eyes, the rods are the ones that detect brightness in low light conditions, and the cones are the ones that detect colors. So people who are colorblind are missing cones, or missing like one type or two types of cones, or even all of them. But the result is that they are actually able to spot subtle movements more clearly, and the biology people hypothesize that this makes them more effective when they're hunting. So when you're kind of hunting wild animals, you wanna see the movement, kind of like a Tyrannosaurus. Actually that's completely fictional. If you watch Jurassic Park, the way they portray the Tyrannosaurus is that if you don't move, it doesn't see you. So it's kind of like that. So apparently, according to the movie, like the Tyrannosaurus is like colorblind, and it can spot movement really well, but if you don't move, it doesn't see you. So colorblind people are a little bit like that. They're not entirely like that. That's probably not a good way to describe them. But there's a little bit of that with colorblindness, in the sense that they are better than most people at spotting movement, and they're not as good at spotting colors. Well, they can't spot some colors, and that's apparently just the trade-off. And there's benefits to hunting, and I guess maybe if you're driving fast cars or you're playing video games where fast reactions are important, then being colorblind kind of has a slight advantage. If you're colorblind in such a way that it allows you to see movement more effectively. Not saying that it's the case for everybody, but just as a general trend. So of course, when we talk about kind of evolutionary history of humans, we come from what we call hunter-gatherer societies. Before we had agriculture, we were hunter-gatherers, which meant we hunt animals for food, and we also gather food. Like we gather fruits and roots and berries and nuts. So we gather food and we hunt for food. And so if you kind of think of it in those terms, being able to see colors easily is better for gathering, because you want to see the fruits, you want to see the nuts, and you want to be able to see all the different colors and identify them quickly. So being colorblind hurts the gathering, because you can't see the things you're trying to gather. Like if you're kind of red-green colorblind, you can't tell the difference between the apples and the leaves, or the ripe apples from the unripe apples. So you don't really know what you're doing if you're trying to gather apples and you're red-green colorblind. On the other hand, like if being colorblind means you can spot movement more quickly, then you're better at hunting. So there's an interesting kind of dynamic between colorblindness and hunting and gathering, which is interesting. That red roof is really red. Now how do we put the spots in? Just randomly? Alright, just randomly. Random spots. Oops. This is not how you make good architecture, by the way. I'm just kind of messing around with oh, whoops, my bad. Just messing around with weird ideas like turning a house into a giant mushroom. Do not think that this will make you a good architect, but maybe it will, to the extent that you are playing and you are experimenting and trying out new things that you've never done before. Maybe that helps. That helps you become a better architect in the long run. But nobody is suggesting that you should build giant mushrooms as an architect, alright? Alright, just make sure I get that out there. I'm sure you understand this though. I'm sure none of you think that this is going to win any awards. Although it is quite entertaining to do this, to be honest. Like, this is quite entertaining. I think we need more spots. I think this mushroom needs more spots. It is very, very entertaining to do this, but it's not good architecture. Let me just make that completely clear so that you are under no illusions that this is not the right thing to do. More spots. I don't know if you guys are having as much fun as I am. Alright, how do we do the next bit? So I suppose it should be green at the bottom because it's like a mushroom sitting on the grass. So I suppose the bottom 2 blocks should be like green. Alright, let's do that. Maybe green with a bit of brown, or just plain green? Just plain green. Just flat green. I'm glad I'm so entertained by this. I don't know if you guys are. I'm having so much fun right now, making a giant mushroom out of this house. And it's important to have fun, you know? If you're just gonna hate your life being an architect, then don't be an architect. I mean, do what you enjoy. If you enjoy it, then do it. If you don't enjoy it, then stop. Should I even make that? Yeah, let's make this green as well, why not? It is quite green at the bottom here, which is good. Which is good. It is exactly what I want. Exactly what I intended. Gets a bit tight here behind. So this used to be a hill. I just kind of cut into the hill to put the buildings in. I don't know if you want to remove the hill or not. The thing is, with the hill here, you can't really see this side of the building. It's not really a big deal, but you don't really see what's going on back here. So back to the color blindness. I've heard some colorblind people kind of talk about having to, you know, like play video games at 60 frames a second. Like if they play at 30 frames a second, like they complain about the seeing the frames and just seeing the jittering. And like when I look at a game that's running at 30 frames a second, often I can't really tell the difference between 30 and 60. I mean, I can kind of tell sometimes, you know, when a game is running, or if you're doing a certain thing where there's a lot of movement, and I can kind of tell the difference. I can definitely tell if it's 20 frames a second. But really, 30 frames and 60 frames is not big of a difference to me a lot of the times. But, you know, apparently other people who can see colors better than, or who can see movement better than I can, they can tell a difference. So, like, different people have different eyes and different biology. So, you know, and sometimes you go into kind of message boards and people debate whether or not 60 frames a second is necessary for films and video games. And really, what it's different people with different eyes. You know, if you think that 60 frames a second is important to you, you can probably see movement better than other people. So you see, like, some people, no, the human eye can't see past 24 frames, and other people are like, are you insane? The human eye can see past 100 frames. But different people have different eyes. You know, some people literally can't see more than 30 frames a second, whereas other people can. So it's not, you're not talking about just people, like, you know what I mean? Different people can have different abilities to see frame rates, so you can't just generalize so much. How do we do the verticals, guys? How do we do the verticals? If it's just white, then it's kind of not that impressive, is it? Should it be white with some light gray vertical stripes on it? Light gray vertical stripes. White with light gray vertical stripes. I think that might be a... Well, it's not a good idea because it's not how you make good architecture, but it might be the correct idea given what we're trying to do, which is to create a giant mushroom. So let me just put the white in. It is very white, and so I'm just concerned by the lack of amusing colors on the walls. But we'll see how this goes. Yeah, so I mean, if somebody tells you, oh, we need 60 frames, well, maybe he's right. Maybe he does need 60 frames, or she. And then if somebody else tells you, no, 30 frames is fine, well, maybe he's right too. Maybe he actually only needs 30 frames. Like, maybe they're both right. It's just that they're different people with different eyes. And remember the trade-off between speed and color. Like the people who can see faster frame rates, they might actually be a little bit colorblind. They might not actually see colors the same way you do. And that's an issue too. Apparently, on average, women see more colors than men. I mean, men are more likely to be colorblind than women, so there's that. But apparently women have more words for colors than men in their vocabulary. On average, of course there's kind of variations between individuals. So not only do women see more colors, they talk about more colors too, which is fascinating to me. Minecraft is made by men. Mojang is mostly men. And maybe it's kind of apparent that there's only 16 colors. 16 colors of clay and 16 colors of wool. I don't know, maybe they should make more colors. Maybe they should have like 128 colors. I mean, you might think that's a lot, but maybe somebody who's really into colors will use all of them. I mean, if they can tell the difference between, you know, one shade of red and another shade of red, maybe they'll use all of them, who knows? It might be worthwhile to make more colors. 256 colors. I think the old Windows 3.11 had 256 colors. Well, it depends on the computer screen. This is a long time ago, by the way. Windows 3.11, you guys remember that? Probably not. That was a long time ago. 8-bit colors, 16-bit colors, 32-bit colors. You guys know what I'm talking about? Basically how much information is in each pixel on the computer screen. Like old computers used to only have 16 colors available on a screen. Kinda like Minecraft. There's only 16 colors of clay and wool. And that stuff was primitive, you know? It was old school, a long time ago. And it wasn't all that impressive. I guess it was impressive when it first came out, but 16 colors is not much you can do with it. I mean, even when you have millions of colors, which most computers and televisions have these days, you can display millions of colors. But even then, when you have like a continuous gradient of colors, sometimes you can still see the artifacts. Like if you kind of have a subtle gradient, sometimes you can still see like lines between the different shades. Even though you have millions of colors, you can still see the lines between one shade and the next, which is I don't know. You can still see the artifacts of it. I think Minecraft can afford to have more colors. I think it does. I think it should have more colors. 16 really isn't enough. See how white this wall is? Yeah, I thought so. I was thinking, before I put the white in, there's not enough colors. in the walls. And it's true. Having it just white is not really enough. Yeah, it's too white. We'll figure it out later on. Let me continue putting the white in. And then think about grey lines. Grey stripes. Not sure if that's going to be a good idea, but we'll see. This is an insane house, it's just a giant mushroom. Although, you know, if you really think about it, why is that wrong? Why can't you live in a mushroom painted house? I mean, it's fun, isn't it? I guess it's difficult to have people take you seriously. Like when you invite them to your house and it's a giant mushroom, maybe that's not. But I feel like, you know, these social expectations, you know, people expect you to live in a sensible house. Like, why? Why do I have to live in a sensible house? Why can't I live in a giant mushroom? Nothing wrong with the mushrooms. Maybe we need more colors in the world. We need more colors in men's fashion, that's for sure. Compare men's fashion and women's fashion. Men are so boring, there's just suits and suits and suits all the time. Different shades of brown suits, oh wow. Yes, I like that shade of brown more than the other shade of brown. Men's fashion is so boring. Like tuxedos? Tuxedos? Everybody looks like a penguin? That's men's fashion, really? Should we make this green? Let's make this green. All can be green. Like if you think about formal evening wear, like men's tuxedos, they're all the same. Whereas women's like dresses and gowns, they're all different. Why is that? Why are men's fashion so boring? This is an impressive mushroom we have here. Let me continue to mushroom this up. So yeah, I mean, if you're not good with color, I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who may be like slightly colorblind and they don't even know. It's possible, you know. I mean, what if you're like maybe 10% colorblind, as in, like, if you look at red, you see red, but it's like 10% paler than how other people see it. How would you know? You wouldn't know, right? Because like, how would you know that you were 10% colorblind? Like, you know, you're not completely colorblind. You can still see all the colors, but what you see is actually not quite the same as what other people see. You wouldn't know at all, right? And then you're like thinking, I don't know, red's not that impressive. Whereas somebody else who can see the whole color, they're like, wow, it's a really intense red, and you don't know what they're talking about. I don't know if that happens. Maybe it happens and people don't even know about it. That'd be a shame. Maybe I'm slightly colorblind. You know, I keep saying that I don't really think about color that much when I design my architecture. You know, maybe I'm colorblind a little bit. Who knows? I mean, I think I see all the colors, but maybe I don't. Alright, so we have a giant mushroom house. Can I just keep telling you how much I'm enjoying myself? Now, is it too white? I feel like it's a little bit too white. Do we want random gray dots, random gray stripes, or how do we want to make this more like a mushroom? I guess the sensible thing to do is to actually find a picture of a mushroom. But we're not being sensible right now, so who cares about that? I mean, if we're properly doing a mushroom house, then the thing to do would be to research what a real mushroom looks like. But since we're not being serious in any way, we're not going to bother with that. Is that odd? Let me just keep trying this. How many blocks? I have 3 blocks. And then vertical line. Well, it doesn't really line up, does it? It doesn't really line up anything. Do I want vertical stripes? That's kind of weird, like it doesn't line up with the windows or anything. I mean, it makes it less flat, but it's not really the way to do it, is it? No, it's not really the way to do it. It's less flat, but it doesn't line up with anything, so it just looks kind of messy. Alright, let's come up with a different idea. What if we outline the windows a little bit? Maybe just the top and bottom of the windows? How would that look? So what if we take the light gray and just above and below the windows put that in there. It's interesting. I don't know if it's good. No, I don't know if it's good, but it's interesting. Maybe it needs to be both above and below the windows. Oh crap, I just broke the block behind it again. Yellow, I guess the yellow. Yeah, maybe it needs to be both above and below the windows. Well, this is actually slightly more serious now because we're actually doing something that actually is a good idea, which is to outline windows. I don't know, it's a bit strange. That green stuff there is a bit strange. It's okay, let me just do that. Just do that and there's our experiment with the mushroom house. I mean, I'm saying the mushroom is silly, but at the same time, we're kind of seeing the effect of the things we're using. I mean, the random white dots are pretty hilarious. Outlining the windows like that is a little bit odd, I think, but maybe it's a good idea? Or maybe it would be a good idea if this building wanted a giant mushroom? That's a bit strange. That's a lot strange. Can't see much of it though because it's behind the cliff here. Let me just continue that all the way around. Yeah, so I keep saying this, but just because we're making a silly mushroom house, it doesn't mean that we don't learn anything from it. So don't be afraid to play. Don't be afraid to be silly sometimes. As long as as long as you are aware of what you're doing, and when you're done, you kind of take time to step back and think about what exactly you've done. You can still learn from being silly. So, don't think that, oh, that's silly, I shouldn't do it. A mushroom house is a silly idea, I'm not going to build a mushroom house. No, don't do that. Build it anyway. Build it anyway and then see what comes out of it at the end. You never know, you might learn something useful from it. Which I have, I think. Especially like the polka dots. Or the checkerboard house. And everything like that. This is interesting. Bordering the windows like this. This is the strangest house I've seen in a long time. Alright, let's come back here. Do the same in the balcony, and I keep breaking blocks that I don't mean to. That's the wrong block. Like right there, like right here. Like right there. That's a little bit strange, isn't it? It is a bit strange. Well, let me just finish this and then we'll step back and look at it. And then think about how to do a more serious job on the other house. I feel kind of paranoid now. Like, what if I don't see as many colors as other people? What if I'm missing out on colors? Is there a test? Is there some sort of test that I can do? I mean, there's a test for color blindness, but that only tests whether you can, see the colors. It's not like how strongly you see the colors. That is the strangest house. I'm not sure the window things work. Pretty sure they don't work. But interesting house. Interesting house. So that's a deliberately bad one. Although it's a pretty good mushroom, but it's deliberately not good design. But as I said, don't worry about it. Like, if you're kind of doing your own exercises and you kind of come up with wacky buildings that don't work, remember that you learn from both successes and failures. Like, if you do something right, you learn how to do it right. If you do something wrong, you learn not to do that next time. So, so-called failures are also learning experiences. So don't worry about failing things, because that's part of learning. There's nothing wrong with learning from mistakes. In fact, it's good that you learn from mistakes. So don't worry about doing wacky buildings. Okay, what I think I want to do in the other house is to actually outline the two halves. Not sure if brown's the right color. Maybe it is the right color. So I'm going to put brown at the corners, and then put brown in the middle, like this. So that it serves as kind of, so we're drawing the outline of the apartments in brown. Sometimes you see this sort of thing in a house where there's like there's kind of timber columns and beams, and then there's like this kind of paneling in between the timber. I forgot what exactly the style that is, but that's actually structural. So if you see that, like if you see kind of timber columns and beams inside the walls, those timber columns and beams are actually holding up the wall. And also it serves as a kind of a decorative outline of the house too, which is cool. Like, it does both. And then, do we want to outline the windows? If we do outline the windows, how do we want to outline the windows? I think that the sensible thing to do is actually to outline the windows in white. Because remember, I said that white reflects more light than than darker shades. So what happens around the windows is you actually want to reflect as much of the sunlight into the house as possible. So imagine if it's daytime. Actually, don't imagine. So now it's daytime. So imagine there's a sun up here and it's kind of shining on the windowsill. some of that light will reflect into the house from the windowsill. So in order to reflect useful light in, you kind of want your windowsills to be white. I mean, if your windowsill is like a bright green color, then the light that reflects into the room will also be bright green, and then the interior of your room is just this kind of green tint, which is kind of weird. So, from a practical point of view, you actually want your windowsills to be white, and like that's of course, that's only if there's a lot of windowsill. I mean, if there's only like a little bit of window frame, that doesn't really matter. But if you have like a large surface, and this is a pretty large surface in comparison to the size of the window, then it probably makes sense to have like a white surface here so you can reflect white light into the room. Not sure if I like that though, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Maybe I'll continue the white, so that's like a horizontal panel. White is difficult to maintain because, as we said earlier, like it stains easily, whereas darker colors don't stain as easily. So what I think I'll do is I actually have like continuous bands of white around where the windows are, because just outlining the windows look a bit strange. I'm going to continue that all along horizontally. So it's going to be like doesn't mean it's going to be like this, doesn't it? Let me just do this and then we'll see how it looks. It's not very colorful, is it, in the end? It's going to be white and brown. It's not the most interesting color scheme in the world. Although, as I said, if you look at, real-life buildings, they tend to be neutral colors. They tend to be browns and whites and grays. Maybe a few primary colors as well. But buildings in real life tend not to be very colorful anyway. Which is a bit of a shame, I mean, because if you're not scared of colors, you can have like mushroom houses. Wouldn't you want to have a mushroom house? Of course you would, don't lie to me. You'd love a mushroom house, I know you do. So, whereas this is pretty ordinary. I don't know if... Do we put in horizontals as well? I guess we do. What color should we put on the horizontal? Probably not a neutral color like the light gray or something. Let's try light gray, see how that works out for us. Don't want to do the brown again. So then that, like the lines kind of draw where the floors are, and they mark out the boundary between the two apartments. So then the lines become kind of informative, which is interesting. And then, because we've spent so much time making this boring, just a splash of color in front of the doors, because, we're kind of scared of colors, but we don't want to be too scared. So just for a little bit of individuality, we say the red house and the yellow house. People do that, of course. Like, when people build apartments or they build kind of houses, the thing is, if you build a bright red house, you can only sell it to people who like red. Whereas if you build like a boring white house or like a boring gray house, then it's kind of acceptable to most people. If you have really bright colors, then only the people who like those colors will buy it. But if you kind of make them neutral colors, then it's easier to market to different people. So it's more like a how should I say this? Like when people kind of make architecture that has neutral colors, it's more like they're scared of people not liking it. And it's not really like they actually want to make the buildings those colors. Because you need to sell the houses. Like if you're building houses and you intend to sell them, it's easy to sell neutral colors. And then once people buy a house, and if they really, really want a different color, then they can paint the house themselves afterwards. Or they might just kind of decorate it in other ways. Like some people put a pink flamingo on their lawn, or something silly like that. And you know, it's because they like a pink flamingo, and they'll just buy one and put it on the lawn, and that's their way of individualizing this really, really generic house that they bought off the market. And what I did there with the red and the yellow is is a little bit like that. It's like, okay, this house is boring, but you bought a doormat that's a really bright color, and you kind of put a bright colored doormat in front of your door, and that's your individuality. It sounds a little bit sad, but that's kind of how, you know, mass-produced architecture works. Because when you mass-produce things, you just make the same thing a lot of times, and you're just gonna sell them to people. And you know, over time, people will customize their own houses however they like. And that's not really the architect's job to give them the bright colors. It's more like the people who live there, it's their job to figure out how to individualize it themselves. I mean, if you can hire an architect to build a custom house for you, like a one-off custom design house, well then you're pretty wealthy. Most people are not that wealthy. They just buy houses off the market. They buy houses that are not designed for them specifically. And that's the dynamic between people and their architecture. I mean, the architect gives them something generic and ordinary, and then they have the opportunity to customize it themselves a little bit. Oops. Kind of like cars. People buy cars and then they hang fuzzy dice on the rear view mirror. It's kind of like that. It's like you don't really get to customize your car, but you can hang fuzzy dice on the rear view mirror. You know, it's like that. And that's kind of funny. You know, fuzzy dice are kind of cool. Or whatever it is you want to hang there. So people individualize in small ways. Is that the right color? Yeah, it is. And you don't want to really, like, you really don't want to tell people no. Like, you know, if people want to put a pink flamingo on their front lawn, I mean, it's sure it's tacky, but you don't want to say no, because that's them, that's their identity, they like it. If you take that away from them, then it's like, why can't you just let people be who they are? So, you know, you kind of have to let them do that. And that's not always the case. Like in some parts of the world, like if you buy a house in a certain neighborhood, there'll be like local bylaws telling you what you can and cannot do with your house. Like, you know, they want to preserve the neighborhood character, and so, you know, you can't paint your house bright colors, or they say, well, you have to make sure you mow your lawn, or they say, you know, you have to, you know, do certain things so that you can preserve the character of the neighborhood. That's a real thing in some parts of the world, and it's like, well, okay, you just legislated boringness. Good job. Yeah, the reason they can do that, or the justification is that they say, well, if you know, buy a house and you put a wacky bit of architecture on it, then it's gonna look bad in the neighborhood and it's gonna devalue the neighborhood. And therefore, you know, I'm gonna lose money if you build a weird thing on your front yard. I don't know about that. I mean, it can happen. But it's like, what if they build something really amazing on their front yard? You know? You're legislating mediocrity. You're legislating ordinariness. What if the guy is some sort of genius architect and he was going to put something there that's going to raise the value of your neighborhood, and then you stop him because you're scared of funny colors? Well, you know, that's your loss. Although, you know, let's be honest here. Let me ask you a question. If your neighbor came up to you and said that they were going to turn their house into a giant mushroom, and you had the opportunity to say no, would you say no? Or would you be happy to live next to a giant mushroom the rest of your life? What would you do, you know, if that were to happen? Like, some wacky artist moves in next door and says, hey, I want to paint my house wacky colors, but I want to ask for your permission first. Will you let them do it? It's an interesting question, right? Interesting. I don't know. Would you do it? Would I let them? I think I would let them do it. I think I would let them do it. But, you know, that's me. So, alright, let me get underneath here. And continue putting in this white stuff. So this white stuff actually extends here and around the window. Haven't really decided what to do with the balcony. And haven't really decided what to do up here neither. I guess you won't really see this bit. Maybe I should just make it white. What if I put a grey line in here? And then make the rest of it white, because if you want to be consistent about it, then it should be a grey line there, I guess. Or maybe that's weird. Alright, that's no grey line. We don't need a grey line there. The grey line is marking the floors, so if you kind of look at it carefully, this grey line is actually on the floor level. So I guess I don't want the grey line there after all. Maybe turn this into white. I mean, this is so boring compared to the mushroom house. Look at this, it's just a house. It's so boring. Ah, yes. Well, there's only 2 houses, so we did one kind of wacky and we're doing the other one kind of normal. I think the roof can be brown or something boring. Maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I want wacky colors everywhere. Maybe I should have wacky colors everywhere. There was a little bit of color on in front of the door. Maybe I should do that again here. What color are we making this down here? Hold on, let me just come through here. What was the color in front? So that's red and yellow on the other side. Let's put a bit of red in front of the balcony door as well, just for consistency. There. And then this can be the same light gray. Seems kind of boring. The brown. What do we have to brown here? Boring but practical because it's a dark color and it doesn't. You don't notice it getting dirty, so it's kind of useful for outdoor areas. It's really brown though. And I mean, that's light gray. Maybe it should be the light gray. Not sure about this brown. Let's have it the light gray, why not? I mean, the boundary is already light gray because of the exterior. There's like one square of brown there. Alright, it's boring enough for us. Let's come back here. And this, but a yellow. Now we need to think of the roof. What are we going to do on the roof? For environmental purposes, it is recommended that you have a light-colored roof. Because what happens is the light-colored roof will reflect more of the sunlight back into the sky, and so then your house doesn't get as hot. You don't contribute as much to the urban heat island effect. I don't know if you know what that means. The urban heat island effect is that because so much of city areas are paved, like roads are paved and kind of courtyards and pathways and houses are solid as well. So it contributes to an urban heat island effect in the sense that temperatures in cities are generally a few degrees hotter than the surrounding area because plants will breathe, and as plants breathe, they release water into the air or moisture into the air, and so plants actually cool the atmosphere down a little bit. And the urban heat island effect is that because there's more kind of hard paving and less plants in cities become hotter. So what the kind of light-colored roof does is that it will reflect more of the sun back upwards, and it reduces the amount of heat that's absorbed into the roof itself. So if you have a black object or a dark object, the light and the heat that kind of hits it from the sun will absorb into the object more. Whereas if you have a light-colored object, more of it will be reflected off the light surface and not be absorbed. And so if you have a white roof, what happens is that it absorbs less heat. And so then you reduce your cooling bills, and you also help reduce the urban heat island effect. So that's how that works. A bit of knowledge for you guys if you're interested. But we use a lot of white already. If we have a white roof as well, it seems a bit much, doesn't it? We don't want any crazy colors. Light blue roof? How do we feel about a light blue roof? That's good. I like that. That's good. Maybe even a light green. Have we used light green too much? Not on the outside. Maybe a light green roof. It's like the same color as the grass, the light green roof. Let's go with the light blue roof. Although the light blue is kind of the same color as the sky then, which is also weird. Alright, it's gonna take a while. I'm just gonna demolish all this dirt and change it all into light blue. I mean, if you're really into environmental stuff, then you might as well put solar panels on the roof and generate electricity for yourself. Although that's more complicated than it's implied, because you don't just put solar panels there, you have to kind of have wiring that goes into your home, and then you need more electrical equipment to convert the solar panel electricity, because that's probably going to be direct current. You kind of have to put an alternator in and turn it into alternating current. Is that what they called, alternators? And then if you want to feed the electricity back into the grid, the cell, if that's available in your area, then you have to kind of put in more meters and things. So it's not just, put a solar panel on your roof and you're green. It's electronic equipment. So you kind of have to have the other stuff. And also you have to maintain it, like it might break down every now and then, you have to kind of fix it, or get it fixed, get someone else to fix it. So it's like, it's kind of like any other electrical appliance. It needs maintenance. And every so often you need to clean it, because if there's, dirt or bird poop or whatever it is covering your solar panel, then you're not really generating any electricity anymore. They're just kind of covered with crap, literally. Bird crap. So you need to clean it every now and then. Yeah, there's not just, if you want to do that, you kind of have to be aware that there are maintenance things you have to do as well. I'm not discouraging anyone from doing it, it's just, you have to be realistic about what you're getting into. Look at this rainbow. There's a rainbow on the interior here, it's amazing. Just look at this rainbow. Huh, the inside is light blue as well. Maybe I'm using this light blue too much. It's also a similar color to the sky. Maybe I am using the light blue too much. Or maybe it's just a good color. Maybe the reason I'm using it so much is because it's a good color. And there's a good reason to use a good color. I don't know. Often buildings aren't even colored. Like if you think about it, concrete buildings might just be the bare concrete. Or, glass is just the glass. I mean, a lot of materials have their natural colors. I kind of talked about this a little bit in the lecture. But even there, like, I guess timber is brown, and there's different shades of brown depending on the different timber you use. But a lot of buildings is just the natural colors, it seems. Or white, because, people don't want to put a crazy color in there, so they just kind of paint it white. Maybe we should have more colors in the world. Maybe we should. I feel like the world's kind of boring. Or the architecture in the world's kind of boring. Back when people still built a lot of religious buildings, I guess a lot of the decorations went into religious buildings. I mean, people still build religious buildings, of course. But, a lot of stuff is quite functional. Although maybe not. I mean, the Golden Gate Bridge is kind of an orange-red color, and that's paint. And they won't change it now because it's become so distinctive, that red bridge in San Francisco. Architects. Should we talk about history a little bit? Since in the modern era, I guess since the 19th century onwards, there was quite a bit of, or at least in the early-ish 19th century, there was a lot of emphasis on white buildings. I mean, architecture at the time was dominated by men mostly, and maybe they were mostly colorblind too. Who knows? But Le Corbusier, if you recognize that name, like he kind of built white buildings. specifically white buildings. So I guess the architecture focused on form rather than colors. So there was this kind of emphasis on the shape of things, not necessarily the color of things. And maybe it's a symptom of the male-dominated architecture industry for so long that, you know, things aren't very colorful. Tadao Ando, if you recognize that name, has built some very interesting buildings, but also very white. Like, he's famous for using concrete. And not just any concrete, but very, very carefully made concrete, so it looks really good. But it's mostly white. So he works with light and shadow. You'll see some of his work in the next lecture, I think lecture 5. I think we'll talk about him a little bit. You'll see a picture of it. So he kind of uses concrete and he plays with light and shadow, but there's not much color in it. It's just kind of white and kind of shadows on the white concrete a lot of the times. Who else can we talk about? Calatrava, who is more an engineer than an architect, famous for having some very interesting curvy buildings and some structurally interesting buildings, but he's a structural engineer, so he likes to play with kind of structures like that. But they're also quite white as well, like it's kind of mostly white. Again, very interesting shapes, but not many colors. And in fact, sometimes when people try to put colors into their buildings, they get criticized a little bit, like when Frank Gehry did the Experience Music project in Seattle. Like, he used a range of different kind of colors. There's like kind of red and gold, and like there's this blobby buildings. If you remember the Guggenheim Bilbao, but the Guggenheim Bilbao is just titanium, so it's kind of silver. Whereas the Experience Music project in Seattle was a range of different colors, and not everybody agreed with it. Like, some people called it kind of, well, I wouldn't. I don't remember the quotes, but you know, people have complained that it was, you know, too colorful, and I don't know. I just feel like there's some sort of unfair bigotry against colors or something. That's a really blue house. Although, you know, under certain lighting conditions, you might think that's gray. Oh well, we've done it now, so we're gonna leave like that. So this other house is slightly more sensible than the mushroom house next door, but at the same time significantly less interesting. Like, really, really significantly less interesting. I think I missed no, I didn't miss anything. There is some things underneath here that we still need to do. What color should we make this? A neutral color. Let's go back to black. Well, that is very black. Maybe this should be brown. Hold on, that's too black. Too dark, I think. Gray? Brown. Let's try brown. Brown's alright. Not many brightly colored buildings. Hundertwasser. I think he's German. I don't think I'm pronouncing his name properly. Hundertwasser is an artist who also designed some buildings. He was famous for rejecting straight lines, so he would have hated Minecraft. So he rejected straight lines, and he also advocated for bright colors. He's an artist, of course, but he did design buildings. So but you know, he wasn't a mainstream architect by any measure, so you know, it always feels like the colorful people are the ones that are, you know, on the periphery of the industry, and they're not really accepted as mainstream, which I don't think is. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's. I think we're missing out on interesting colors. I think we're missing out on having rainbows in our rooms. You know what I mean? We'll see what happens in the future of architecture. Alright, so there we go, we're done with the coloring. So in the end, what do we get? We get one wacky house and one slightly more sensible house. And I think we learned a lot about colors and architecture. This mushroom is insane. This is so boring in comparison. Alright, so I mean, I won't say what's better and what's worse. Let's just say they're different. One is different from the other. Whether you like one or the other, it's up to you. Should we go for a brief tour on the inside? Let's go for a brief tour to the interior, just to finish off. Yeah, checkerboards and rainbows. This is kind of insane, but maybe it's an alternate vision for how the world can be. Maybe the world can be more colorful. Maybe we're insane because we reject colors. You know, maybe we're missing out. This is not good. This was the first attempt. And we did try out a whole lot of different combinations. I think maybe half of it worked and half of it didn't really work. If you want to talk about how much of this we like. But you know, a learning experience. Every failure is also a learning experience. I won't deny that this is not the best. This is the landscape theme house. It's pretty acceptable, although you notice it's quite neutral colors again. It's the white and the brown and a bit of green. So it's very neutral colors. But it seems like something that a serious person would be able to accept. Although we do have this in the kids' room, and this is amazing. Look at this rainbow. I'm not sure if you can get to sleep in this room. Like you're kind of lying on the bed looking up at this rainbow. It's kind of amazing. That's fun though. Alright, so this apartment is fairly plausible in terms of what you might expect somebody to buy. This is actually a bit stronger, the iceberg theme house. The blues, like the blues are really kind of a deep, rich blue here. And it's very blue. Like if you don't like blue, then you're not gonna like this house. You know what I mean? Whereas the other one is just neutral white and grays and browns. And you know, nobody, I don't know if anyone likes, like, if you ask somebody's favorite color and they say brown, you might look at them a bit weird, right? Like, your favorite color is brown? But you know, at least it's acceptable to most people. Whereas if you don't like blue, then you really don't like this house. Has anyone ever met anyone who is like, my favorite color is brown? Has anyone ever said that in the history of the world? I don't know. Anyway, so this house, the colors here are slightly stronger. And if you, yeah, as I said, if you don't like it, then you really don't like it. But if you like blue, then maybe you really like it. Alright, so let's end this here. We have some fairly interesting adventures with color in this exercise. I think I got good practice out of it. And we had a bit of fun with this house, and then we tried to be a little bit more serious with this house. And yeah, I think I learned a few things, got a little bit of practice, have some new ideas now. Good, a fruitful exercise. I like it. I'll see you guys in the next video where we will talk about light and shadow. I'll see you in the next lecture, guys.